Hello, everyone. In the small hours of May 25th, the Chiron Venus cardinal square is going to be exact. And according to Judy Hall, Chiron Venus is always about love hurts. So it's a very painful aspect. And I remember way back in 2003 or 4, so at least 20 years ago, when I had this discussion with Judy, since I do also have this Venus Chiron square in it, and it's a fixed square, so it's a lot worse than a cardinal, because a fixed square always denotes deeply ingrained, embedded karmic issues that we haven't even touched in previous incarnations, and we didn't even try to resolve, and we may not be able to resolve it. So that's the problem. Anyhow, so I remember we discussed this with Judy, and I explained to her that in my practice, what is interesting with Chiron is that, of course, when you look at the chart, you look at the position of Chiron, it's going to tell you where and how you receive your karmic wounds. The house placement will tell you the where, which sphere of life, and the energy pattern, the sign will tell you how. And very briefly, I know I spoke about this a couple of times. My students probably know it quite well, but let's revisit karmic wounds by elements. If you have a fire Chiron, your personal creativity and your ability to practice inspirational things is wounded. If you have an air Chiron, either your relationships to other people or some really bad noise is coming in. I don't know where. Anyhow, hopefully it's not bothering the recording. Well, it's not going to be in the recording. Let's hope. And if yes, I need to redo the whole video. That's what usually happens. Anyhow, so with air, it's your ability to create relationships, or your thinking processes, or your knowledge. The issue of knowing too much or too little, and also your theory creating abilities are wounded. If it is an earth sign, in an earth sign, then Chiron denotes your problems with 3D, with the earth plane, with physical being, the physical existence, and you might have all sorts of serious problems being here. So the Judy Hall, she had no earth in her chart except Chiron. So, and she really had serious issues with being here in the third dimension. And finally, a water sign, a water Chiron, denotes wounds around emotions, which is probably the most painful. But believe me, all Chiron wounds can be very painful. So, but what's interesting, whereas the elemental pain will be there for you. It's going to act as a trigger point. The house placement can be repaired. And what's interesting, and this is what we discussed with Judy way back 20 years ago, that I told her that in my experience, people with certain placements, house placements, don't avoid that sphere of life. They actually go into it quite early. So instead of avoiding, you want to resolve it, and that's the beauty of Chiron in the houses. That yes, there is time to repair it, and that's why I asked Judy to please give me another way to look at it instead of just love hurts. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, love hurts. We don't know that, but can you please give us some kind of perspective, positive outlook, how we can repair this? And she looked at me, she wore glasses, and she looked at me and she said, love needs to be a healing element, a healing property. And I loved it. So here it is. Let's take a look at the chart for London. The exact Venus-Chiron cardinal square will happen in the very, very small hours in the morning of the 25th, and Pluto is rising on the ascendant, whereas the Mars and the Moon are setting. There's also the vertex is on Trans-Pluto. Trans-Pluto is channeling, but also a spouse archetype. The Trans-Pluto has two labels, either Isis or Persephone. Both are committed but very free spouses. And there is the Jupiter North Node conjunction, which is getting very tight. Also the Vesta Uranus conjunction, which is focusing on change, also getting quite tight. And there's an interesting midpoint structure with Mercury, Astrea, and Vesta. The Astrea-Vesta conjunction will be coming again within very tight orb soon, which is focusing on karma breaking or destiny changing. And now with the Vesta-Uranus conjunction, which is really, focus on changes, focus on what you need to change, focus on your freedom. For God's sake, the powers that be really want to take away all our freedoms, what has remained so far. So let's focus on not allowing it, but also on personal karma breaking and destiny changing. You have this brilliant midpoint structure because Astrea is on the Mercury Vesta midpoint. Mercury is communications, learning, and Vesta is the focusing principle. So if you are re-stimulating, triggering the this karmic wound, love hurts, if you have this in your chart and in these upcoming days you experience it, all you need to do is you need to focus, Vesta, on how you're going to trigger it, to treat it, Mercury, verbally, and how to change it if possible. And so that's a way out. Let's take a look at the dissolved square, because this square, this Chiron Venus square, is really getting dissolved by the Vesta Uranus conjunction. And actually, so there is hope. You don't need to suffer through the whole thing. The Vesta Venus portion of the sextile is focused on your love instead of the hurt. And the Uranus Venus square is to change or to love freely, to change the way you love and do it in a more freer or nicer way. And here are the transcendental celestial objects. On Venus, we only have Vasat. Vasat is the Delta star of Gemini. And if you take a look at how it is depicted in the pictures, Vasat is where the two twins are linked by their elbows. And this is a healing world where we learn how to make decisions. And I think this is really brilliant that at this time, space-time moment, Venus is on Vasat, because actually you can make important decisions with the help of this fixed star and resolve the cardinal square with Chiron. On Chiron, we have Ptah, who is an Egyptian god who creates he is a potter, and he creates mankind on a pottery disc, so or wheel, something like that. So it's quite on a physical, very, very physical, very manual way of creation. And we have another Egyptian archetype, Khufu, who was the pyramid builder on Uranus. On Vesta, you have Darius, a lot of money, big resources, and Ruha, which is Delta Cassiopeia. And Cassiopeia is an interesting archetype because the story, if you Google the story of Cepheus, Cassiopeia, Andromeda, Perseus, and the Cetus, these are all in the northern sky, by the way, and they tell you the story how Cassiopeia, who was a beautiful woman, but a very, very vain woman, almost destroys her own family, her own nation, the Ethiopian kingdom, by the fact that she creates herself she depicts herself in a very, very elevatedly beautiful way. So she's just too vain and too selfish, according to the story. But anyhow, the whole constellation Cassiopeia, which is a W, so you can find it quite early and easily in the sky, is the manifestation of the beautiful woman. I think I told you everything here, so let's take a look. Because if you put this into your own program and you start looking at the tight aspects, you will find a wide complex planetary picture, which is about within 0 and 3 degrees. And if you take a look at it, you see a ground cross, but this ground cross is not really closing. As you may remember, planetary pictures need to be within 2 degrees. And if there are non-radiating points, they have to be within 1.5 degrees. And the nodal axis is not yet there. Jupiter is still making a square to Pluto. Mars is still making a square to Jupiter. So the Mars-Jupiter-Pluto T-square kind of energetically is definitely there. It's interesting because the Sedna-Sun conjunction is already separating. I'm sometimes some words are not getting to me. And the Moon-Mars conjunction is also separated. So you have here the 2 luminaries really highlighting backwardly, of course, but still as if like a hindsight, okay, let me look back and see what it is, but they are highlighting the space-time moment. Of course, this is a crescent moon phase. And so we really don't have a full double karmic cage. A karmic cage is when the nodal axis has a square at the bending. And Mars does have, and also even the moon. So we have a half a karmic cage, but with Pluto, it's not really happening. I left it here for you to see the degrees and understand how it works. And yeah, in a couple of days, we will have the Jupiter North Node conjunction, which is quite interesting because the North Node is our chosen destiny for this particular space-time, and Jupiter is going to fill it with ambition and also enthusiasm. So yes, and by then, hopefully, the Pluto square will be falling apart because Pluto is going back to Capricorn. Okay. Here are the transcendental objects linked to this not really closing, so a bit wide planetary picture. The sun has Sphinx and Nemesis, secrets and revolt against the gods' wishes. The moon has Hiroshima, and quite interestingly, as I was preparing this word file and the drawings. By the way, this takes a lot of time. First of all, I look at the chart, then I realize, okay, it's important. I'm going to create a video on this, and to draw these, to make these drawings is about 3-4 hours. I'm just letting you know. And in the meanwhile, I'm usually watching something because I like to at least listen to some YouTube channel or whatever. And as I was putting this together, there was the G7 committee or whatever gathering in Hiroshima. And Biden said he is not going to apologize. Now, I know this is painful, but I would like you to know that on the brink of the Third World War, which is going to be an atomic war because everyone is going to take out their little play things and they're going to utilize the fact that, yes, I own an atomic bomb, and hopefully we are not going to see it, but believe me, if the worst comes to the worst, yes, they are going to use it. And what is important for you to understand and remember that so far in human history, it was only the United States who actually threw a bomb on a city, on the civilians, and destroyed the city, actually 2 cities. So that's what we have on the moon, of course, just for an hour or 2, because then the moon will be coming out of it. And Altarf, which is beta Cancer, which is either the eye or the claws or one of the feet of the celestial crab, and it denotes insight. It's where we learn to have insight. On Mars, you have Sirius. Sirius is a centaur. By the way, again, I keep forgetting to tell you, if you don't understand this, it's important to remember that transcendental objects are color-coded. Magenta or purple are the asteroids. They denote the personal level, personal karmic level. Blue is always centaurs or TNOs, karmic wounds and how we get out of them, what they turn into, either phobias or special traits. And then the red ones are the fixed stars, which are not within the solar system, the outer higher dimensional world where the soul can also incarnate, and it does to learn certain traits and certain things in order to utilize it on the earth plane. Okay, so Altarf is looking into it. And then Silurus, of course, is a centaur. And it's one of the centaurs that I call, it's a true centaur, by the way. It's one of the centaurs that I call betterment or high rising centaurs, who are perfectly aware of their nature, that they are half animal, but they are striving to get out of it. They are striving to better themselves. And Silurus is usually linked to the fact that you are born very low and you want to elevate yourself. And you want to better yourself. You do everything in your power to get into a better and nicer place. So that's Silurus. Okay, on Jupiter, we still have Hephaestus, Justitia, Justice, and Helio. So the lame smith who creates beautiful objects. Justitia, Justice, is one of the cardinal virtues. Justice, of course, and Helio is the sun god. On Pluto, view Orius, and look around, please. Orius is the mitigating factor, denotes mitigating punishment. I told you the story many, many times. He is the great-grandchild of Aries, the war god, and although he is a murderer and commits horrible sins, he is not being punished fully and completely by Zeus because of what he is, who he is. And look around, this is exactly what's happening in the world. I mean, it's unbelievable how certain people get away with murder and other people just are prosecuted for nothing, really. And I don't know how familiar you are with EU happenings, because you English are no longer there and you Americans are, you couldn't care less. But anyhow, there was a big scandal last year. Eva Kaili, one of the vice presidents of the parliament, the European Parliament, got caught with a lot of euros in her flat. And it was, of course, probably bribe money. She couldn't account for it, but she's back. She's back. She was let out of prison and she got back her job. Okay, because, oh, poor thing, she wants to work for Europe and for the people of Europe. Ridiculous, really ridiculous. That's what the Pluto-Orius conjunction, as long as it is within O, this is what you're going to see, that people get away with murder. On the North Node, you have Metis, the goddess of wisdom, plus Athena's mother, and the two stars which have been there for quite a while, Sheraton and Meshartim, the two stars in the constellation Aries. On the South Node, you have Xerxes, a powerful general, a fighter. On Sedna, you still have the Pleiades, and you will have the Pleiades for quite a long time, because for at least 2 years, Sedna is a very, very slow-moving object, and the Pleiades is the constellation that in esoteric law is linked to the creator goddess. It's the home of the creator goddess, suggesting that now we have the potential to recreate our worlds, our whole world, because Sedna means creation through dissection. We need to look at what is not working in our life, in our entire world, and then recreate it with the help of the creator goddess. And on Trans-Pluto, we have Dione and Isis, two very important feminine archetypes, wife archetypes. Isis, of course, is the wife of Osiris, and Dione is the first wife, the first love of Zeus, when he still doesn't know that he is the chief god, and he falls in love with, I think she's just an older young girl that he falls in love with, and actually marries, the euphemism of lying together. And so it usually denotes this Romeo and Juliet type of young, innocent love, beautiful love. And great that we have this in the Chiron Venus fixed cardinal square chart. And what I wanted to tell you is the fact that Borasisi, one of the TNOs, is leaving Pisces and entering the vernal equinox point, Aries, 0 degrees Aries, on May 23rd, around 8 p.m. in London. And this is Borasisi and its moon, Pabu. Now, the two names come from Cat's Cradle, a novel by Kurt Vonnegut. Read the novel; it's very, very funny. And as you can see, Borasisi. By the way, the story in it is the story of Bokononism. It is some sort of religion in which Borasisi is a sun god type, strong ruler. He is the sun god. Pabu, the moon, is his wife, and he wants to have fiery, beautiful offspring. But instead, Pabu is producing just the rest of the planets, which are cold and rocky. And so Borasisi is throwing them out, and then they are circling around him. So that's the solar system manifestation in a story. And as you can see, this is a NASA picture way back from 2003. Borasisi and Pabu are almost of the same size. And take a look and Google it, how they spin around each other. It's beautiful and fascinating, because that's what they do. They kind of come together, then they go away, and then they come together again and they go away. So something like, it is a very, very fascinating dance as they are doing. And if you look at the orbital period, 293 years, you can actually check how long it's going to stay in Aries, but quite for a long time. But and it probably at the beginning of this period, it will be coming in and out. So you'll probably go back to Pisces and then come back. I haven't checked, so I don't actually know. But now it's at the Aries point, and look at the orbit. As you can see, this is Neptune's orbit, and then Pluto is it's actually reaching into Neptune's, and then Borasisi is reaching into Pluto's orbit. And that's very, very typical of centaurs and TNOs, that they are not orbiting around the sun in a certain territory, but they are actually moving into other territories. So Borasisi, the strong leader, the strong monarch, who is also not very nice. And whenever you have Borasisi tightly involved in your chart, you may have had someone in your life who is acting as this very strong and very demanding figure, or you yourself are turning into one. And Borasisi at the Aries point, at the vernal equinox point, suggests that there is an age coming where this strong and willful, powerful ruler is going to tell us what we can, what we can't, and it's not a nice energy. Instead of in the midst of the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter's T-square, actually it's an added force. Let's put it this way. And this is the I just selected this time for you because there is a tight but dissociate harmony triangle in the space-time moment. Pluto is still at 0 degrees Aquarius, but retrograde, so it soon will go back into Capricorn. Sedna is at 29 degrees 43 Taurus. So this is a trine which is actually energetically a square, and Borasisi is at their apex at 0 degrees. So actually the Pluto Borasisi sextile is okay energetically, but the Borasisi Sedna portion is not, because that's only a semi-sextile energy, but it's very, very tight. So you see, it happens all the time that at the end, at the very beginning of the signs, you will have these dissociate aspects which are not working exactly the way they should. And the fixed T-square is also widening already, but it's still kind of there. The Mars-Pluto opposition is coming out of orb, but it's kind of still powerful. And the rest, okay, the Mars-Pluto square is again widening. But the Mars-Pluto opposition, sorry, it's widening. The Mars-Jupiter square is very much there. So enlarging any conflict that's there is still happening. Unfortunately, I just, as I was preparing this video, there was the news that the Russians finally occupied Bakhmut. But of course, the Ukrainians say no, they didn't. I both are lying through that. He's never believe anyone in a warfare, because they're always lying. But anyhow, the T-square is still there, but luckily it is separating already. So Mars will be coming out of Ob in a couple of days. Maybe the energy will be there by the end of the month still, but no longer tight and no longer closing. Okay, so with Boras CC at the vernal equinox, this whole painful placement of the last couple of days is kind of amplified. And watch the news and try to understand how things work and try to utilize it for yourself. But if you have things around 0 degrees in your chart, you will be affected by all these changes in energy. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.